4:16 a.m. Eastern Poland. The radar operator stares at his screen. A single contact blinks where nothing should exist. It moves too fast, too high, too deliberate. His hand hovers over the alert button for 2 seconds that feel like hours. He presses it. Across NATO command centers, alarms scream into the pre-dawn darkness. Automated systems kick in, cross-checks run. Satellite feeds triangulate. The track is confirmed. Trajectory. Inbound. Target. A major Polish city. There is no time for diplomacy. Only enough time to understand what is about to happen. The white flash comes at 4:19 a.m. It turns night into a second sun. For 3 seconds, shadows burn backward. Then the shock wave rolls outward at 700 miles per hour, erasing blocks, shattering windows 30 miles away, and sending a mushroom cloud climbing into the stratosphere. The yield is estimated at 300 kilotons. 15 times Hiroshima. In that instant, the old world doesn't just end. A new, harder one begins. The blast wave has barely settled when the first emergency protocols activate. Deep beneath Brussels, the NATO Crisis Response Center floods with personnel. Screens light up with satellite thermal imaging. The detonation signature is unmistakable. Nuclear. On European soil. Article 5 territory. The Supreme Allied Commander convenes a secure video call within 7 minutes. Faces appear on monitors, pale, tight-lipped, calculating. The question isn't whether this is an attack. The question is who launched it, and whether more are coming. In Warsaw, what remains of the Polish government evacuates to hardened bunkers beneath the capital. The president is airborne within 12 minutes, aboard a command aircraft circling at 30,000 feet. Communication lines to Washington, London, Paris, and Berlin light up simultaneously. The words spoken are few. The implications are vast. DEFCON 2 is authorized. Strategic bomber wings in the United States go to alert status. Submarines already at sea receive encrypted burst transmissions. Missile silos in Montana and North Dakota spin up their systems. No launch orders are given. Not yet, but the machinery of retaliation is now awake and waiting. On the ground in Poland, the sirens come too late. They wail across cities that are already changed. In Krakow, 200 kilometers from the blast, people wake to the sound and the sight of an unnatural glow on the eastern horizon. Some think it is dawn arriving early. Others know better. Within 15 minutes, state television cuts into regular programming. The message is stark. A nuclear detonation has occurred. Seek shelter immediately. Close all windows. Turn off ventilation systems. Do not go outside. Do not attempt to travel. Wait for further instructions. The message repeats. It repeats because there is nothing else to say. In the city struck, there are no survivors in the central zone. The fireball vaporized everything within a 2-kilometer radius. Beyond that, buildings are flattened or burning. Thousands are dead. Tens of thousands are injured, blinded by the flash, deafened by the pressure wave, or trapped beneath rubble. Hospitals that still stand are overwhelmed within the first hour. Medical staff work without power, without communication, and without enough supplies. Radiation counters begin clicking. The invisible threat is already spreading. Across Europe, the reaction is immediate and chaotic. Air traffic control centers ground flights. Passenger jets over Eastern Europe are diverted west or south. Airspace above Poland, Ukraine, and the Baltic states becomes a no-fly zone within 30 minutes. On the highways leading away from the blast region, traffic surges. Cars pack the roads in both directions, creating gridlock. Fuel stations along evacuation routes are drained dry by 6 a.m. People pay with cash, cards, or nothing at all. Some stations close their pumps when the tanks run empty. Others close them when the crowds become dangerous. In Berlin, Brussels, and Vienna, supermarkets open to lines that stretch around city blocks. Shoppers move quickly, filling carts with bottled water, canned goods, batteries, and medicine. There is no looting yet, but there is no patience either. Shelves empty in hours. Store managers impose limits: 2 liters of water per person, 5 cans maximum, 1 flashlight per household. It doesn't slow the tide. By midday, the bread aisles are bare. The rice is gone. The pasta is gone. What remains are the things no one wants until they have nothing else. In the United States, you wake to the news. Your phone buzzes with alerts. The headlines are identical across every outlet. Nuclear strike on Poland. Casualty estimates unknown. NATO convenes emergency session. You turn on the television. Every channel shows the same footage: satellite images of the blast site, thermal signatures, radiation dispersion models. Experts speak in measured tones, but their faces betray the fear. This is not a drill. This is not a distant conflict. This is Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all. The commentators debate intent. Was this deliberate? Was it accidental? Was it a rogue launch, a miscommunication, or the opening move of something larger? No one knows. Intelligence agencies are working the problem, but intelligence takes time. And time is the one resource no one has in surplus. You glance at your family. Someone asks if this means war. You don't answer because you don't know. But you feel it, the tightening in your chest, the weight of uncertainty pressing down. The world you woke up in is not the world you are living in now. By 10 a.m., the fallout models are public. Meteorological agencies release wind pattern projections. The radioactive cloud is moving northeast, carried by prevailing winds. Towns in its path receive evacuation orders. Buses are dispatched. Trains are rerouted. But the infrastructure is not built for this. Roads bottleneck, fuel runs short. Some evacuees abandon their vehicles and continue on foot. In the towns outside the immediate blast zone, civil defense workers open shelters in schools, churches, and municipal buildings. These spaces were identified decades ago during Cold War planning. Most have not been maintained. There are no supplies. No ventilation filters. No potassium iodide tablets. Families crowd into basements and wait. Children ask questions their parents cannot answer. The only certainty is that staying indoors is safer than being outside. But how much safer? For how long? No one says. In Moscow, the Kremlin issues a statement. It denies responsibility. It calls the incident a tragic accident. It suggests the possibility of a malfunction in a Western system or a Ukrainian provocation designed to draw Russia into conflict. State media echoes the line. International broadcasters are jammed. Social media fills with competing narratives. Some claim false flag. Others claim retaliation for a recent skirmish along the border. The truth is drowned in noise. Western intelligence agencies analyze launch telemetry and satellite data. The trajectory points toward a likely origin Russian-controlled territory, but likely is not certain. And certainty is the threshold for launching nuclear weapons in response. So the missiles stay in their silos, the bombers stay on the runways, and the diplomats keep talking, even as their nations prepare for the possibility that talking will fail. By the end of the first day, Europe has closed in on itself. Border controls tighten. Schengen rules are suspended. Some crossings remain open, but only for verified travelers. Others shut entirely. Refugees from the blast zone are funneled into processing centers where they are screened for radiation exposure. Those with dangerous levels are quarantined. The rest are moved west, deeper into the continent, into cities that are already strained by the sudden influx. Trains are packed beyond capacity. Platforms become temporary camps. People sleep on floors, on benches, on their luggage. The question everyone asks is the same: when can we go home? The answer is never spoken aloud, because for many there is no home left to return to. In the United States, the first tangible changes arrive quietly. Gas stations in some regions see lines forming. Not because of shortages, but because of fear. People top off their tanks just in case. Grocery stores in major cities experience a run on shelf-stable goods. It is not panic, not yet. But it is preparation driven by the recognition that distance is no longer protection. Some schools close. Others remain open but send letters home advising parents to keep emergency kits ready. Local governments review continuity plans. Police and National Guard units are placed on standby. At military installations, leave is canceled. Personnel are recalled. Security levels are raised. The shift is subtle but unmistakable. The machinery of the state is moving into a defensive posture. Inside your home, you begin to make decisions. You check your supplies. Water 3 days, maybe 4 if you ration. Food a week if you stretch it. Medications enough for now, but not for a prolonged disruption. You think about what you would need if the power went out, if the water stopped, if the stores didn't reopen. You don't race to the supermarket. That ship has sailed. The shelves are already thin. Instead, you prioritize. You fill containers with tap water while it still flows. You gather flashlights, batteries, a radio. You identify the most protected room in your house. No windows, interior, walls, away from the roof. You don't expect to need it, but you know where it is. You talk to your family. You agree on a plan. If alerts come, this is where you go. If evacuation orders come, this is what you take. The goal is not to be ready for the end of the world. The goal is to be ready for disruption, for uncertainty, for a period where the systems you rely on might not be reliable. 48 hours after the blast, the situation has not improved. It has clarified. Intelligence assessments are refined. The launch origin is confirmed with 90% confidence. Russian territory. A mobile launcher, likely from a unit stationed near the Belarusian border. But 90% is not 100, and the remaining 10% is enough to prevent immediate retaliation. NATO leaders convene again. The debate is fierce. Some argue that inaction will embolden further strikes. Others warn that striking back could trigger a full exchange. The doctrine is clear: respond proportionally. But what is proportional to a nuclear attack? A conventional strike? A limited nuclear strike? Total war? The room divides. No consensus is reached. So the posture remains defensive. Forces are positioned. Red lines are communicated through back channels. But no weapons are fired. Not yet. In Poland and neighboring countries, the second wave of crisis begins. The initial shock is worn off. Now comes the logistical collapse. Power grids in the affected regions are down, not from the blast, but from the loss of centralized coordination. Substations are offline. Repair crews cannot reach them because of contamination or blocked roads. Fuel for backup generators runs out. Hospitals operate on battery power, then on nothing. Patients who need dialysis, ventilators, or refrigerated medications face impossible choices. Medical evacuations continue, but capacity is limited. Triage becomes brutal. The most critical are moved first. The rest wait. In cities farther from the blast, rationing becomes formal. Fuel is restricted to emergency vehicles. Grocery stores operate on limited hours and enforce strict purchase limits. Cash becomes more useful than cards because payment systems are unstable. ATMs run dry. Banks limit withdrawals. The economy doesn't collapse. It contracts into survival mode. Across Europe, daily life continues but in a diminished form. Workplaces shift to remote operations where possible. Schools close in districts near the blast zone and remain open with reduced attendance elsewhere. Public gatherings are discouraged. Mass transit runs on reduced schedules. Governments appeal for calm, for patience, for solidarity. Most people comply. But beneath the surface, fear is spreading as surely as the fallout. People stop trusting official statements. Rumors proliferate. Some claim more strikes are imminent. Others insist the worst is over. Conspiracy theories flood social media, false flags, secret wars, hidden agendas. The information environment becomes toxic. Truth and lies mix until they are indistinguishable. Trust erodes. In its absence, people retreat into smaller circles, families, neighborhoods, those they know. The broader world becomes a source of threat rather than connection. In the United States, the second day brings visible strain. Supply chains begin to falter. Not because of direct damage, but because of cascading disruptions. European ports slow or close. Shipping routes are rerouted. Air freight capacity is diverted to military and humanitarian use. Retailers notice delays. Warehouses notice shortages. Consumers notice gaps on shelves. Imported goods become scarce electronics, certain foods, pharmaceuticals manufactured overseas. Prices rise, not dramatically, but noticeably. Gas climbs 20 cents. Bread goes up. Milk goes up. People grumble but adapt. The real pressure is psychological. The sense that the systems holding modern life together are fragile, that the conveniences you took for granted are contingent, that the world can change overnight. And once that realization sets in, behavior changes. People start keeping more cash. They stock up when they find supplies. They drive less. They stay home more. The economy doesn't crash. It slows. And the slowdown feeds on itself. By the 72nd hour, the acute crisis has stabilized into a chronic emergency. The blast site remains uninhabitable. Radiation levels will take weeks to decay to survivable thresholds, months to reach safe levels, years before the land can be reclaimed. The Polish government declares a state of emergency that will last indefinitely. International aid flows in medical supplies, decontamination equipment, temporary housing. NATO allies pledge support, but pledges are not shelter. They are not clean water. They are not the lives lost in the first flash. In the capitals of the world, The debate shifts from response to consequence. What does deterrence mean now? What does Article 5 mean if a member is struck and no retaliation follows? What does security mean when the threat is not an army but a single missile? There are no good answers, only trade-offs between risks. The decision is made for now to hold fire, to impose sanctions, to isolate the aggressor diplomatically, to reinforce Eastern Europe with conventional forces, to demonstrate resolve without escalating to mutual destruction. It is a gamble. Everyone knows it, and everyone knows the gamble might fail. For you, 72 hours after the strike, the world is different in ways both large and small. You have not been directly harmed. Your home is intact. Your family is safe. But the assumptions you lived by are gone. You understand now that distance is not safety, that modern life is not guaranteed, that the structures you relied on, supply chains, communication networks, financial systems, are fragile. You understand that preparation is not paranoia, that having a plan is not overreaction, that knowing where to go, what to do, and how to sustain yourself for even a short period is the difference between control and chaos. You do not expect the worst, but you are no longer surprised by it, and in that shift from expectation to readiness, you have gained something more valuable than any stockpile. You have gained clarity. The first 72 hours after a nuclear strike on Poland reveal a hard truth. Civilization is not a permanent state. It is a condition maintained by infrastructure, trust, and routine. When those are disrupted, civilization does not end immediately, but it fractures, it becomes local, it becomes conditional. The people who adapt are not the ones with the most resources. They are the ones who accept the change and act within it. The ones who prepare without panic, who cooperate without coercion, who understand that survival is not a solo endeavor but a collective one. You cannot control what happens in the war rooms of Moscow or Washington. You cannot stop a missile. You cannot undo the detonation. But you can control what happens in your home. You can build a buffer of supplies. You can identify safe spaces. You can establish communication plans with those you trust. You can turn off the noise and focus on what is actionable. In doing so, you do not eliminate risk, but you reduce it. You shift the odds in your favor. And in a world where the odds have just gotten significantly worse, that shift matters. The skies over Poland are still dark with ash and debris. The winds carry particles that will settle on fields, rivers, and cities far from the blast. Geiger counters click in towns that were safe yesterday. Evacuation orders expand. Shelter-in-place orders extend. The new normal is not normal at all. It is a state of suspended crisis, where every day is both routine and fragile. People go to work if work is open. They shop if stores have stock. They sleep if they can quiet their minds. But underneath it all is the knowledge that everything has changed, that the world is not what it was. That safety is no longer assumed but earned through vigilance and preparation. And in that realization, there is both terror and clarity. Because when you stop assuming the world will take care of you, you start taking care of yourself. And that, in the end, is the only real security that exists.